I'm Rachel, age 23. My relationship with my little brother used to be solid until he hit middle school and suddenly thought he was a big deal. Meanwhile, I was transitioning to high school, indifferent to anything except spending time with him. But he began gravitating towards a new clique of friends I found insufferable, always flaunting their wealth and displaying rudeness that grated on my nerves. In his company, my brother adopted their obnoxious behavior, distancing himself from me. He became elusive, rarely at home, and whenever I suggested spending time together, he'd scoff at me. I despised the person he was evolving into. Feeling the responsibility of being the elder sibling, I resolved to intervene. Why should I just stand by and watch him change for the worse? So one Saturday night, I invited him to the movies, knowing his favorite TV show had been adapted into a film. This time, when he laughed off my invitation, I took action. I tackled him to the ground and held him down until he relented, demanding to know why he was behaving like such a jerk. Finally, he confessed, "I just want to impress those guys, okay?" He struggled to free himself from beneath me, his voice pleading as I exerted all my weight upon him. "What do I have to do to get you off of me?" He cried out in desperation. My response was firm and unwavering. "Promise me you'll revert to your true self and find better companions." Relenting, I rose and stormed out of the room, hoping my actions would jolt him into reality. It was imperative he ceased this destructive behavior. In the ensuing months, a noticeable transformation occurred. Though he remained somewhat distant and reserved, he started spending more time at home, occasionally engaging with me, and the undesirable company he once kept vanished. Overall, it marked a considerable improvement. 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, we ventured to the movies together. Our parents provided ample funds for both tickets, while I brought money for snacks. Yet he delayed our departure, disappearing into his room for what seemed an eternity. After countless knocks, he emerged donned in black attire, leaving me baffled by the lengthy preparation. Arriving at the theater with mere minutes to spare before the movie's commencement, frustration simmered within me. Hastily, I ushered him inside, gripping his hand with the determination of a disgruntled parent. "I'm not missing any more of this movie, come on," I barked, rushing towards the concessions and then to the correct theater. We settled into our seats, having missed the lion's share of the previews, my annoyance palpable in the air. Seated in one of the most undesirable spots due to the theater's overcrowding, my disappointment was palpable. As the movie commenced, my brother abruptly rose, announcing his need for the restroom. Initially dismissive, I grew concerned when his absence stretched to half an hour. Reluctantly, I left the theater in search of him. Scouring the premises inside and out yielded no results until I reached the rear of the building, where I discovered him in the company of the very individuals I had warned him against. Shock flooded through me as I witnessed them defacing the building with spray paint. Anger surged within me as I seized my brother and attempted to lead him away. However, amidst the confrontation, flashing blue and red lights illuminated our predicament. Caught in the act, we faced the imminent arrival of law enforcement. I vehemently protested my innocence, but the swift intervention of the police left no room for explanation. That night, our parents collected us from the jail, their disappointment evident. Forced to fabricate excuses for the unforeseen events, they expressed bewilderment at our actions, repeatedly questioning what had led us astray. It was a scenario so utterly unlike us. They insisted, their disbelief echoing in my ears. The repercussions of our actions weighed heavily on us, even prior to the court's intervention at school. Despite my disinterest in associating with the troublesome crowd, my little brother gravitated towards them. At that juncture, it seemed futile to resist. He had become ensnared in their influence, and I felt powerless to intervene. Months passed before our court date arrived, prolonged by the maneuvers of those responsible for our predicament. Their affluent parents utilized legal tactics to prolong proceedings, ensuring the case dragged on until a favorable judge could be secured. However, an unexpected twist occurred when the assigned judge fell ill, necessitating a sudden replacement. Seizing the opportunity during a recess, the culprits conspired to scapegoat my brother, viewing him as the ideal candidate due to his youth and recent inclusion in their circle. They callously plotted to frame him for the entirety of the crime, sparing themselves any consequences. When he resisted, they resorted to threats, manipulating his fear with warnings of dire consequences if he refused to comply. The gang leader's chilling assertion, "Once you're in with us, you're in for life," encapsulated the gravity of the situation. Their intimidation tactics escalated, with frequent visits to our home at odd hours, hurling threats and objects from their car. What began as sporadic drive-bys soon escalated to a relentless barrage, with multiple shifts throughout the day, instilling a constant sense of fear and vulnerability within our household. If they spotted us outdoors, they'd hurl debris, usually remnants from the fast food joint they frequented. However, one encounter stood out. I found myself alone outside when their car screeched to a halt. Though I recognized the two occupants, we had never formally met. They emerged from the vehicle and advanced toward me, prompting me to retreat slowly towards the safety of our home. Their lewd remarks and catcalls echoed as I hurried inside, their provocative taunts lingering even after they departed. The following day, we were interrogated separately, each pressured to confess. While the others maintained their innocence, I alone fabricated a narrative for the court's consumption. According to our concocted tale, I had persuaded my brother to accompany me home, and his associates trailed us in an attempt to dissuade us. Remarkably, the court bought our fabrication, sentencing me to a decade behind bars. The severity of the sentence stunned me, especially upon learning the true extent of their wrongdoing. Planning a theater robbery. How could I be held accountable for their crimes? Prison life proved far from easy. My roommates' hostility made every moment a challenge, while the general atmosphere among the other inmates was equally inhospitable. After 6 arduous months, I found solace in a small circle of acquaintances, yet maintaining friendships within prison proved daunting. A careless remark during lunch inadvertently offended 3 kitchen workers, resulting in a swift retaliation. They orchestrated the removal of the few privileges we enjoyed, subjecting me to deplorable sustenance that scarcely resembled edible fare. My bedding was perpetually soiled, littered with crumbs, dirt, and even rocks. During shower time, my soap vanished without fail, and my clothes or towels often went missing thereafter. While the hazing I endured was harsh, the loss of my circle of friends proved even more devastating, leaving me feeling isolated, fearful, and profoundly vulnerable. Miraculously, after just 8 years, I received news of my eligibility for parole, a development that caught me off guard. Many inmates had warned me of the arduous process, involving multiple attempts and hearings. Expressing my astonishment to my mother upon her arrival, her explanation left me incredulous. "It was your uncle. He's been advocating for your release ever since your conviction. He spared no expense on legal representation to secure you a parole hearing. His endorsement and character reference were instrumental in your release," she revealed nonchalantly, leaving me speechless. Perhaps my brother had finally grasped the sacrifices I had made for him. As we neared home, anticipation swelled within me to reunite with my little brother, hoping to find him restored to the sibling I once knew. Rushing to my bedroom upon arrival, I reveled in the familiarity of a room devoid of prison fixtures, finally mine and mine alone. Eager to reconnect, I sought out my brother, envisioning a joyous reunion. Discovering him engrossed in an online conversation in his room, I greeted him with warmth, hoping to bury the past. However, his response hung heavy in the air, signaling a terse conclusion to our tumultuous history. "Look, we're even now," he uttered after a prolonged silence, casting a shadow over my hopes for reconciliation. I was dumbfounded, unable to comprehend his callous words. "Don't give me that look. You took the fall for us, and I arranged for your early release. We're square. I owe you nothing," he declared, his indifference cutting through me like a knife. "We?" I questioned incredulously. "You're still associating with those guys?" The shock of his response left me reeling. Nothing had changed. What had happened to my brother? "Get out of my room," he chuckled dismissively, his laughter ringing hollow in the air. Retreating to my own quarters, I shut the door behind me and sank onto the bed. How could he still be entangled with that crowd? How could he treat me with such contempt after all I had sacrificed for him? Determined to confront him, I resolved to have a conversation, regardless of the hour. Under the cloak of night, I ventured into his room, intent on reclaiming my brother. Bursting in, I found him engrossed in his online conversation. What do you want? He snapped. Listen, I began, exasperation tinging my voice. What's going on with you? I went to prison for you. I lost 8 years of my life, missed everything. Why are you treating me like this? Why are you still hanging out with those losers? His response hit me like a sucker punch. I didn't ask you to go to jail for me. I didn't ask you to intervene that day. Do you even realize what you did? He retorted sharply. You're the reason we got caught. After you were incarcerated, Mom wouldn't let me out of her sight. It was like being imprisoned. No friends, no social life. She even pulled me out of school. If you had just let me take the fall, I could have gotten off so much easier. I was younger. They wouldn't have pinned the drugs on me, but with you there, it was a risk. Once again, I was blindsided by disbelief at my brother's callousness. How could he harbor such sentiments? Regret flooded over me, questioning why I had sacrificed so much for someone so ungrateful. How had I been so deceived? You took my life, Rachel, he accused, his words piercing. I should have known you wouldn't consider anyone but yourself. His threat reverberated within me, igniting a resolve to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Enduring 8 years in prison, only to be met with accusations from my own flesh and blood, I vowed to exact my revenge, to show him the pain he had caused me. The following day, I set my plan in motion, seated on the front porch with a notebook, meticulously plotting my retaliation. Lost in my thoughts, I scarcely noticed the arrival of an unfamiliar car until a familiar voice pierced the air. Hey baby, you look good today. They jeered, sending a shiver down my spine. Looking up, I recognized the 2 individuals who had harassed me 8 years prior, now approaching me with sinister intent. Panic surged within me, yet I endeavored to maintain composure in the face of impending danger. Every fiber of my being seemed frozen in place as the taunts of the 2 men echoed around me. Ah, what's the matter? Did prison take the fight out of you? They jeered, drawing closer. Fear gripped me, rendering me immobile and speechless. Paralyzed by terror, I sat there, my mind racing with panic, unable to utter a word or make a move. Closing my eyes tightly, I silently wished for the nightmare to end. Suddenly, a commotion broke through the haze of fear. Hey, look out! Someone shouted. Startled, I opened my eyes to witness my little brother hurling food at the aggressors, coming to my rescue with a fervent determination. With each toss, he fiercely defended me, driving the intruders away. I watched in disbelief as he stood up for me, his protective instinct shining through. As the men retreated, my brother and I sought refuge inside our home, seeking solace in the familiarity of our shared space. Sitting side by side, we turned on one of our old favorite TV shows, finding comfort in each other's presence. It was then that he opened up, admitting that his earlier mistreatment stemmed from shame over his past actions and uncertainty about how to face me after my sacrifice for him. Tears welled in his eyes as he embraced me tightly, expressing his remorse and gratitude in equal measure. In that moment, as we held each other close, a profound sense of reconciliation washed over us, paving the way for healing and forgiveness.